Well, another Independence Day comes to an end here. Didn't really get to do much this time because, the coronavirus and a few other things. But I did get to watch a bunch of free fireworks that my neighbors were setting off, so that was cool. And by free, I mean I watched it from my backyard as they were setting it off down the block or wherever the hell they were doing it. Yeah, another thing about this holiday, right? My dog was freaking the fuck out. Both of them were. Especially Petey, though. I had to keep him in this back room after all the fireworks started going off because he was freaking the fuck out. He wasn't freaking out the past few nights when smaller amounts were going off, but tonight it really got to him. I got to Kiki too, so my mom took her over to my grandma's house for a while because it's hard enough to deal with one, let alone two dogs that are freaking the fuck out on you. But yeah, fun enough day, even though I didn't do much other than order a pizza and then watch some of the fireworks my neighbors were setting off. That and edit videos. As you can hear, some are still going off, even though it's after midnight. Which they're supposed to cut off the fireworks at midnight, but they're still going on some people. Which I'm sure they'll cut off soon enough. But happy Independence Day, everyone. Happy 4th of July. Despite the fact that some dumbass people have been trying to get rid of this holiday, and we'll get to that in a minute. Warning, this is going to be a heavily opinionated video. You don't have to watch from here on. Once again, I'm not trying to get political, but I am going to express my fucking opinion on a lot of dumbassery that I think has been going on, and you may disagree with it, and that's totally fine. I've tried to be fair and whatnot through all of this, but I'm fucking tired of it. So, let's get into it. So obviously, there was a bad thing that happened to a guy, right? A bad thing that happened to a man by a bad guy. Essentially, I'm talking about George Floyd, obviously. But, he's kind of become irrelevant now because all the shit following it outweighs it by a lot. I mean, there's been so many fucking deaths. Do you know how many fucking shootings Chicago has had because of that shit? A lot. Like 20 people at a time dying on some occasions. And then you got all these companies saying, yeah, we got a black square. That means something. We're being activists. Fuck off. You don't care. It's a marketing ploy and nothing more. And then you got people doing activism, right? Which isn't fucking activism. It's just straight up destruction and chaos and anarchy. Like the whole Chaz thing. Wasn't that a fun watch? I'll admit, I had a fun time watching Memology's cover of that. That was a fun shit show, like watching a trashy reality show. What was it? 5 shootings, 2 deaths? An onslaught of rapes and assaults? Yeah, fun time. Summer of love, am I right, boys? But none of that mattered, because Black Lives Matter, am I right? Even though both people who died there were black. You got dumbasses tearing down statues, Union statues even, isn't that great? Tearing down the side of the North. Because they probably don't know who they're tearing down, because they just got some organizer saying, hey, let's rip down some fucking statues. You got people trying to say Independence Day is somehow wrong. I don't even fucking get that one. You can fill me in on that one. That makes no goddamn sense to me. Like, when I was younger, I didn't really care about the meaning behind Independence Day. Especially, 5-6 years ago when I was going through my little faggy anarchist phase, which I went through. But it was a phase. I grew out of it. I realized that was fucking retarded. And I didn't used to understand patriotism, but I'll admit I have a good amount of it now. Not because I'm like, oh yeah, America, everything, but it's the idea. It's the symbolism. It's everything behind it. It's not literal. It's very symbolic and figurative. The idea is personal liberty, which is very important. But yeah, with that whole Chaz thing, right, the mayor didn't give a shit about the deaths and destructions and shit getting burned down, broken, people getting shot, raped, whatever, Summer of love. That's what she kept calling it. But then they show up at her doorstep once, and by golly, she changed her fucking mind, did she not? Now you got Twitter trying to fucking decide what words he can and can't use on it, like they want to get rid of blacklist and whitelist and change it to allow list and deny list, which, that's the cutest thing I've ever heard. You're making up your new language. New speak is real, am I right, boys? They're like, oh, you can't use the word master/slave. And I saw an Optimus video on it, right? And he's like, when are you ever going to use that? Well, clearly Optimus knows fuck all about cars. I mean, so do I, to be fair. But there's something called a master cylinder and a slave cylinder, which I think is what they were referring to. And Petey is still losing his shit because some people are setting off some fireworks still. Chill the fuck out, dude. There was a bunch of other dumb little things that they were saying, but I didn't keep track of all of it. But Twitter's like, now we're gonna move away from these words because that'll solve the problem. Am I right? That we did it, boys. We beat racism. And I know I keep saying we did it, boys, but and I'm being very facetious here, but it's very annoying to me. You got everyone calling out and like every company and a lot of YouTubers coming out and talking about how they want to support the cause. Which, I mean, if you genuinely think you're supporting a cause, more power to you. And if you genuinely want reform, I say go for it. But there's a lot of organizations that have been having violence, and a lot of organizations that have been indiscriminately bailing out criminals. And a lot of that donation money, a lot of people don't know where it goes. So I'm just saying, do what you want, but be thoughtful. Just, think about it. And I love that these organizations pick names that they try to make it sound like if you argue against them, you're bad. Like, for instance, the name Black Lives Matter. Of course they do. Of course they do. But that's not what the fucking group stands for. If it did, they would not have tolerated the death of David Dorn. If it did, they would not have tolerated the deaths that happened in Chaz. If it did, they would not have tolerated half the fucking deaths that keep happening. People getting criticized for trying to defend themselves, charges potentially being placed against them, all sorts of shit going on. It's fucking nuts. Fucking, you got the UK having people trying to destroy things of Churchill, right? Like statues of Winston Churchill. And then people coming out and saying, well, if you try to defend the Churchill statue, you're a Nazi, which that does not compute because Churchill fucking went to destroy the Nazis. That was part of what he was all about, so no. But yeah, there's so much goddamn cognitive dissonance, it pisses me off. Like, I would not call myself the most, go America. Like, I'm not full-on Sergeant Bastard. But I have been getting closer and closer with this shit going on, I am not gonna lie. It's really funny, too, because apparently certain subsects of BLM are very anti-Israel. So they've been saying a lot of anti-Semitic stuff, at least in the UK rallies, and it's been causing some of those people to backpedal, so I don't know, there's so much fucking shit people just ignore when they follow these groups blindly, and like I said, if the group actually stood for what it claims to stand for, I would be all for it. But anyway, there's a difference between the people that are actually protesting the proper way and people who aren't. So, there's a big difference. Like, I am 100% pro-First Amendment. You protest like you're supposed to. That is your constitutional right, and you fucking do that if you want change. But there's a big difference between protesting and going out in the middle of the fucking highway and not expecting to get hit by goddamn cars. Thank God nobody died from that as of yet, so that's at least something, right? And the highway may or may not have been closed off. A lot of the barriers I saw were not official looking. So if it was closed off by just, citizens, then I think that sets a fucking dangerous precedent, because then anyone can just say, hey, we're going to close off this part of the city, and you can't do shit about it. Fuck you. And I don't agree with that. Fuck you. And there's a big difference between holding a sign and shit like that. And, like, here's the thing with marches and stuff like that on streets. The way you do that is you organize it, because that way you can be escorted, you can be protected, you can have the street actually closed off. My gripes are not with people who are doing shit by the book and the way they're supposed to. And even in Chaz, I have given credit to people who I have seen being at least somewhat reasonable. I mean, they're still in Chaz, but they're still being somewhat reasonable, and I can respect that. Like, I saw this one guy who was saying, don't do this is violence, when people were trying to steal this guy's flag. Good on him. That's the kind of people you need if you want to have a good movement with good optics. Or there was a lady following this guy around who had a flag saying, do not attack this man. I don't agree with this man. I don't support this man, but he is using his First Amendment right, as am I. And that is the way you fucking do it. So again, although I disagree with Chaz in and of itself, at least there were some people being nonviolent within it. I'm sure a lot of people were nonviolent in it. Let me get that out there. But it was a hellhole, because it was just a shitstorm of junkies and homeless people who were doing all sorts of crazy shit. But yeah, what I'm saying is, if you have a message, don't let it get corrupted with violence. That's never a good thing. And if you're a fucking corporation, don't take a goddamn political stance. You mean nothing to anyone. All they want is your products, and all you want is for them to buy it. It's okay, buddy. Yeah, Petey's freaking out again because there's more fireworks. It's okay. It is all right, dude. You are fine. Anyway, I've ranted enough, and this is probably controversial enough, so toodles.